there's an apparent beauty that, living here your whole life, you may kind of take for granted sometimes, but moving away, you kind of realize pretty quickly that there's a lot here.
I love the sense of community. Community among my fellow business owners, community with my customers, community with visitors and second homeowners, and community with longtime residents.
It's a huge blessing to live in the Berkshires and have access to all these beautiful resources of nature and waterways and all the conservation that goes on in the Berkshires. And I think more people should and need to have access to all the beauty that the Berkshires has to hold.
It's 4 seasons, and it's New England, and it changes all the time, and I've come to appreciate that.
It is both rural and sophisticated, and someone told me that we have the highest density of cultural institutions per capita in America, and I believe it.
Being a kid here, growing up, going through the school system, the narrative is always, how do we get the hell out of here? Because, we have this perception of no opportunity, of, not being able to afford to live here. So most people end up going to cities and finding more opportunity. So much of that boils down to the accessibility and housing and just being able to live.
Who's the future? If you can't rely on having the next generations find a place to live, to work.
If you don't have a fire department, and if you don't have EMT, and you don't have people who can live inside your community who are young enough to help you if you need it, that's a real problem. And you're gonna be trying to figure out, how do I get myself to the hospital that's an hour away?
When I started looking for housing here, the options for me were very limited. Being single and just one salary.
Many restaurants that used to be open 7 days a week are only open 5 days a week because they cannot get adequate staff to stay open the hours they want.
In the last 10, 15 years, all schools have seen a drop in the number of students. We've seen a drop in the number of young people in town. Affordable housing brings those students and those young people back to town, and that's really important.
Without providing housing that is accessible to young people and to young families and to healthcare workers, teachers, firefighters, kitchen workers, shop owners, small business owners, we won't have the community that we all love in Berkshire County.
In the early 90s, as the overall revitalization of Great Barrington started to take form, a handful of us resurrected the Community Development Corporation, which had laid fallow for probably 5 to 7 years. And we were able to secure funds to create significant housing for moderate and low-income people. And that started to make a significant difference. And that really put us on the map as an important force for positive change in the community.
I live in Egremont. I've been there full-time for 25 years now. I've been concerned about housing for most of that 25 years. For a long time, it was like being a voice in the wilderness. It's only recently that people suddenly have become aware of the fact that we have a serious housing problem in this area. One of the changes that's taken place with respect to housing up here over the last 10 or 20 years is an increase in the amount of high-end housing that's being built. That's, of course, catering to the market for the second homers from New York City primarily and Boston, but it has not helped in terms of getting less expensive housing.
I'd say that the biggest challenge around housing is the math. It doesn't add up. We're seeing interest rates, go through the roof. We're seeing construction costs really get to a point that it's not sustainable for many developers to go ahead and build housing. So it's looking at zoning, it's looking at subsidies, it's looking at, how can we bring donations back into the mix. We can't just rely on federal funding. We can't just rely on the state.
If I'm a private developer, the market is in the high end, and that's where I can make the most money. It's very difficult for me to build something that's less expensive. That's why we need private contributions. CDC is good at doing that. CDC is good at getting money from various sources in order to build that kind of housing rather than the high-end housing.
We live in an unjust world at the moment, and the CDC is a leveling organization that helps make it possible for people to live here that couldn't.
So as an organization, we've realized that there's no one project that suits everyone's needs, and we're exploring a mosaic of solutions for the Berkshires. These include large-scale apartment buildings like Bentley and Windrush, and smaller projects where we have Hillside, which we built, and Sumner Block, which we bought to preserve. We've explored a short-term housing community in the Thornwood. One side of what we do is affordable housing, and the other side of what we do is economic development. The inside joke at our board meeting is if we were good enough at economic development, we could put ourselves out of business because no one would need affordable housing. Until that day, we are really building community, and we're building that community with quality, affordable housing and living wage jobs.
Being a community where our economy really is dependent on tourism, at least in some degree, it's important to do as much as we can to create a balance so that there are affordable pathways to home ownership and there are affordable apartments.
I represent 18 small towns, and they're united with their passion and their determination to keep their families strong and to look after the seniors and keep the small businesses thriving. So what I'm trying to do is now, as a state representative, say, I have access to conversations I might have not had in the past, and how can I bring the people together and pull that money together so we can make a project actually thrive and be sustainable.
When I first moved here, somebody was telling me how they went to a town hall meeting where they were discussing potential affordable housing in the area. And a lot of people turn up when you're talking about affordable housing. An executive from Fairview came and said, listen, we are 30 people short on our staff of techs, nurses, healthcare providers across the board, and it's because they can't afford to live here. So if you as residents of this area want healthcare, we need to have affordable housing.
Hi, I'm Robin Helfand. I'm a small business consultant and a business owner in the downtown Great Barrington district. I like to say I'm one of the architects of bringing workforce housing to Great Barrington because many years ago, and I've been here for 18 years, I went on record as saying that I was in a situation where I was keeping 2 apartments in town for my staff so that I knew I would have staff so that my staff could serve customers.
My name's Tom Sharp. My wife and I co-founded Mungie. We're a design studio here in the Berkshires close to 10 years ago. I had the experience myself of starting something from nothing and growing a little small business here in the Berkshires. And so when the opportunity was presented to work with other small business founders, this just seemed like an awesome opportunity to say, all right, how can I help? One of, if not the biggest reason why the Berkshires is thriving is it's the small business communities.
My name's Kevin Kelly. I'm the founder and owner of After Hours Hospitality. After Hours is a nomadic restaurant that operates out of existing spaces during the hours that they're closed to promote mutual success and really just change the way that we can perceive and interact with restaurants and food businesses. After we'd been operating for about 5 or 6 months, we were left without a kitchen space pretty much overnight. And I ended up connecting with some people in the nonprofit space who helped kind of guide me to the Thornwood. And I think it was a matter of a couple days they were able to have me in the space, and we were able to come and bring together one of our largest events that we had to date. We were, kind of looking at brick and mortar restaurant locations, and it was something where, you're looking at $5,000–10,000 plus a month just in rent. It's really been extremely beneficial, I think, being able to have a home base.
What we're doing is we are going to small business owners and we're saying, we want you to succeed, we want you to thrive. How can we help you? The grants that are worked so hard to get for this program are just tremendously valuable, because now these professionals are getting paid for their time, and then the business owners don't have to be stressed and burdened with that cost.
I felt the impact and the change, being able to be, in a room with somebody who can help direct and advise and answer the questions that I might not even know to ask.
Having more small businesses in town is an additive synergy. It's 1 + 1 = 5. One small business shares with another small business, then a third small business comes into town, and people suddenly start to realize this is a place that's business friendly, and specifically friendly to small businesses, and specifically within the small business community, friendly to entrepreneurs. And that's a very special thing to be celebrated in this day and age.
Hi, my name is Carrie McGinn. I'm a doctor of physical therapy and a 500-hour yoga teacher. I own Yoga Studio. We're a newer yoga studio in the Berkshires. We opened about 1.5 years ago, and a huge piece of this is bringing community together, connecting people, and helping people feel really good in their bodies through movement, mindfulness, and meditation. I've been really lucky to work with Small Business Development Program. I met immediately with someone. They got to learn about Yoga and our needs and what we were working with. So while there's a lot that I have learned through trial and error and my own kind of figuring things out, it was really nice to get the support as a small business to fill in the gaps that I didn't have. Having this sort of support in place for small businesses goes a long way, so that small businesses can focus on their community and on the things they're good at and get help from other people to continue moving everything forward. And I can put my energy into showing up and caring for my students and not worrying about the small things that are not my expertise.
My name is Alexis Montgomery, and I own Hearth and Hound. Hearth and Hound is a dog daycare facility, and then we also provide boarding for both cats and dogs, and we do dog grooming. Working with the Small Business Technical Assistance Program was extremely helpful for me. It helped me take a step back and look at the big picture instead of just focusing on the day-to-day operations. We have been growing by leaps and bounds. We are actually sold out for boarding and daycare this weekend, and we sold out last weekend.
I'm Tara Warner. I am the owner and chocolatier of Truffles by Tara. I do small batch chocolate truffles, and I try to use as many locally sourced ingredients to flavor them to be a taste of the Berkshires in every bite. I've worked in food service my whole life. I have a degree in baking and pastry arts from the Culinary Institute of America. What I needed the help with was the behind the scenes, the bookkeeping, the numbers. They said, okay, we've got you. We'll pair you with the correct person and we'll help you get to that next step. My biggest issue is there aren't a whole lot of affordable spaces, and I can't find a reasonable priced space that I can then turn into the confectioner kitchen of my dreams.
I don't think that people understand what happens behind the scenes of small businesses so that they can walk into each business every single day, so that they can get their coffee and get their yoga class. And we don't know what's behind the veil and what these business owners are struggling with.
What I love about the SBTA is that it's the idea that like we can't just worry about housing. It also has to be like people need jobs, and then these local businesses also need to be supported so that they can be successful enough to pay people a living wage.
Small businesses are the lifeblood of the Berkshires. That's what keeps everything fun and different and interesting.
The people who own small businesses live in the Berkshires, they work in the Berkshires, they care for the Berkshires.
The fact is that in order to have people live here who have roles in the town, whether on the police department, whether teachers, firefighters, they need to be able to afford to live here. They don't want to travel an hour away. If they're going to travel an hour away, they can work in the town that they're living in where they can afford to live. So we really need to find ways to get more workforce housing here.
Now things have shifted in a housing perspective, especially since COVID. The work that CDCSB is doing is more important than ever. Like, how can we help young people feel like this is a place where you can create a life, where you can grow and thrive with your young family and your small business?
I grew up here my whole life in Great Barrington, and I moved out west for a couple of years and decided to move back. Starting from scratch back here in Berkshire County by yourself is difficult. And I was a little nervous at first until I drove by the Thornwood and I saw the sign. Finding a place here at the Thornwood was like all my dreams come true, but it couldn't be better. It's right here in town. I work at the Guido's now, the Great Barrington store, and also I have worked at the Berkshire School in Sheffield. It's a very great place to work, good people, fun place to work. I think it's good to be around people from different backgrounds, no matter where you are. It's not just the Berkshires, in my opinion. It's what can help you grow and appreciate other people.
My name is Holly Stanton, and I have a business in Great Barrington called Cafe Holly, and I live at the Bentley Apartments. I had separated with a partner and I was looking for a place. I got lucky. I ended up getting this apartment in May, where I moved in June, which was really, really unusual. I have no idea, because I have friends that have waited on the list to get housing for a long time. Moving to Bentley has been amazing. I love living so close to everything. My shop is 3 minutes away. I can walk to downtown, like this summer during the busk. I'd bring my boys there. I have a few friends that live here in the building. Like, I've been practicing making sourdough and I just bring it up the hallway to my friends. Like, here, I made a loaf of bread, it's still warm. Without living in a place where the rent is sustainable for me, I couldn't have opened up my business. And I'm supporting 6 or 7 different families, you know, with the employees that I have. It would be unattainable to live here without these apartments.
Selling my house in Alford and been there for 35 years. So when you make big changes in life, it's the worst mistake you could make is to do anything really quickly. So when I came over to Thornwood and I realized that I could have this as a transition place, or if I begin to feel comfortable after I got everything settled, then I could think about, well, maybe this is where I want to stay. I notice it a lot at Taft Farms because we try to bring in workers. We've had people refuse to come and do interviews because they've already done their homework and checked, and they know that there's very little affordable housing. People don't want anything going up because they think associated with affordable housing means the kind of people they don't necessarily want around. And that's not true. And I'd like to take you across the street and show you the kind of people I'm talking about.
Most young people starting out in life don't have a lot of money, so it's nice to have affordable housing in like every area.
For me, this place is kind of like the golden spot because it's right next to my parents and near family, so I can go back and forth and see them quite easily.
While living at the Thornwood was kind of a lifesaver because my parents had sold the house that I was living in. I didn't really have a choice, so I had to find somewhere to move, and this was like my saving grace.
I work at the co-op, and I do find that a lot of my coworkers do either they're local to Great Barrington or Egremont, Sheffield, like very close, and they have to rely on affordable housing options. Being able to have affordable housing has allowed me to stay in the area in an environment that I appreciate and enjoy living in.
One of the #1 things that people need when they're living somewhere is a roof over their head and stability. And that's one thing I have here, living here, is stability. For myself, it's perfect.
A moment that really showed me the impact of affordable housing was a project that started in the early 90s. The CDC became owner of a site that was abandoned by a company that was making log homes. And we were challenged with the idea of redeveloping this site. 5 or 6 years ago, the CDC developed a portion of this site and created low and moderate income apartments. And when that ribbon was cut, it was really a significant thing to see people with smiling faces living in these buildings.
It can be tiny homes. It can be workforce housing in a communal setting. It can be a program to provide the down payment for housing that leads to home ownership. And the beauty of what we've done here in Great Barrington is we're trying to provide options that are affordable. And that's what I hope we'll do going forward.
We don't want to just build cookie cutter units that are the lowest price that we can create. We want to build quality units that are made with good materials that are going to last for a very long time and be an incredible asset to the community for many generations to come.
We, through our affordable housing development, are bringing tens of millions of dollars to the Berkshires. I can't think of a better use of a donated dollar. And you combine that with our special status as a community development corporation, which for donations of $1,000 or larger results in a 50% tax credit for our donor. It's the best deal going. There is no better way to invest your not-for-profit donation dollar than with our organization.
I think the CDC gets it, that they link economic development and housing together. And without one or the other, we're not going to have a community that thrives. For me, that is the key.
$10,000 gift to the CDC is not a $10,000 contribution to a $400,000 housing unit. It's a $10,000 key to unlocking a $400,000 loan or public grant to create that housing unit. It's extraordinarily smart the way the CDC does that.
What towns need to do to help affordable housing is to make it easier, cut the bureaucracy and red tape, and within reason allow affordable housing to be built without 20-year lags while permitting goes on.
If we want vitality and if we want people to come to see us, then we need employees to greet the people. And if these employees don't have a place to live, what's going to happen?
Affordable housing brings people together And once you start bringing people together, I mean, they just become familiar and one thing leads to another. And in my opinion, it can only be a good thing.
What are we about? Do we want to be a vacation spot or do we want to build a community? Building community, you need affordable housing.
Every time I drive by one of our developments and I see a school bus, and then I notice that there's 15 or 20 kids coming off a school bus and 15 or 20 parents waiting for them to come off the bus, and that's priceless.
When you can contribute some money and you see that that contribution results in less expensive housing being built, that is enough of a reward by itself.